say pickleball players.
Oh, you want to?
He's driving something, yeah.
So he was in our office on the second floor.
Springs, 4-hour drive, about 4 miles south of Fort Myers.
Wow.
The Coconut Point Resort, pretty bad.
I've been over that.
Find out, report back on Monday.
Well,
So,
they totally give up their
I'm gonna instrument your, I think my hours are the next couple of weeks before I go back full time. So, like 4 half days per week. And then, so we'll go on the schedule. Should have him, don't plan on it.
council meetings that no one cares back to support this whole business in Baytown.
I can't believe he's in high school. What's coffee? Really? When? Sorry to hear.
By the way, Joe was in Joe the neighbor. He's in hospital. This was Wednesday, so I think back to Saturday. Saturday was 2 weeks. So we've been there 2.5 weeks. Well, he got some sort of staff position. We're having a hard time figuring it out. And on top of that, we're just in general health, he's got congestive heart failure, he's got diabetes, he's also got his kidneys are stage 3, stage 4 kidney failure.
I don't know what I'm doing.
So
It's usually the first
I
month.
got a text from his daughter, they moved him into ICU. Guy at church, Jerry, Jerry's.
So does she live in Titusville?
He's also got it on
And she's going back to her country for a month.
so he's been here 2.5 weeks today.
When is she leaving?
Or Sunday.
So how do they got
Or
it?
they know where camp out?
2 weeks ago Saturday, 2:30 in the afternoon.
So the kids right down with you?
The oldest.
Down the street, can't be too bad, wait, exactly.
Because he's the older ones in school.
Yeah, the other, well,
Yeah. So, I was still about a mailbox. Sunday was. I can't remember the daughter texted me. Yeah, he was really struggling. She texted me today and said that we got out ICUs. Garbage can. She said, Joe, he said he was having some issues. Said, "You get one done."
It's scary.
But yeah, I was
Hasn't even called it. Are you doing okay? Happier? Is it final?
very hard to get transferred out.
Well, good evening. Thank you for your indulgence. We appreciate you waiting for us to get started this evening. At this time, I'll call this meeting of the.
You can't hear you.
You can't hear me. I'm lit up, but okay, I'll get closer. All right. Well. All right. At this time, I will call the regular Board of Adjustments and Appeals meeting for July 27th, 2022 to order. At this time, would you please join me as we pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. At this time, we have roll call, please.
Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith Rodriguez,
Here.
Member Beckles,
Yes.
Member Wheelis,
Yes.
Alternate Member Van Zyl de Jong.
Here.
Very good. We have 5 here, so we can go for our meeting tonight. First order of business is approval of the minutes for June 29th, 2022. Were there any corrections or comments to be made from the minutes? May I have a motion then, please?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And no, oh, good. No opposed. All right. Verify. Announcements. I got announcements. Okay. At this time, all persons who anticipate speaking on any public hearing item must fill out an oath card to be heard on that agenda item and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on a table near the entrance to the council chamber or may be obtained from the recording secretary. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with procedures adopted in Resolution number 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make a public comment on an item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative for either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for the commission to consider, you must submit into evidence and they will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the recording secretary. In essence, have all parties signed one of the pieces of paper to speak tonight on your agenda item. If not, you need to get one of those pieces of paper and turn it in to the recording secretary, please. All right. We have, okay, verify people sign the cards. Confirm. Staff, has the agenda items been properly advertised for tonight?
Yes.
Very good. Have there been any members that have visited or spoken with members of the public regarding items related this evening that we're reviewing? Okay, I'm seeing no on all accounts. And we have no consent agenda tonight, and we have no old business. So we'll open up with new business, and that would be variance application number 19-2022 for 2901, is that Jasmine Street?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to ask if the agenda could be reordered correctly. This was a misprint. It should be number 18 as the first agenda item, followed by 19 and 20.
Oh, yeah, there it is. 18's down below. Very well. Any objection?
No.
All right. Seeing none, then we will change gears to go to 18-2022, 1660 Yorktown Avenue. Staff?
So if you will, please click to page 57 of your packet. That's the first page of this agenda item, number 18.
Yeah, that's us.
So I'm going to skip again further into page 59 of your packet, the first page of the staff report. So this is a variance number 18-2022 for a property located at 1660 Yorktown Avenue. The applicant, Joan Robbins, is requesting a variance to Land Development Regulations, Section 28-391, Residential Accessory Buildings and Structures, and City of Titusville Land Development Regulations, Chapter 16, Plan Unit Development, Article 4, Standards, to allow a carport to encroach into the front yard setback and be located in the front yard for property located in the single-family low-density zoned R1A/PUD zoning district at 1616 Yorktown Avenue. I'll explain the differences between these two sections of the code in a moment. One of them is not readily available in our current code. It's actually an older code, and I'll explain why that still adheres here, and also why the zoning district has a R1A/PUD. So the property has a future land use of planned unit development. That's a comprehensive plan land use designation. And the property was originally zoned back in the early 80s as planned unit development. In 1993, all the properties throughout the city were citywide rezoned. And this particular property was rezoned with R1A with that extra caveat that it was originally zoned as a PUD to acknowledge that. The surrounding properties also have the same zoning district. The lot characteristics on the next page, page 60 of your packet, which is page 2 of the staff report. The lot was platted in 1986 as a single-family lot, and currently there is a detached single-family home on the property, which is permitted under that original PUD zoning and the current zoning. I'll summarize the criteria that we're supposed to follow when considering a variance. I'll do this one time, I won't do it on the next case. What you should consider is that whether there is a special conditions and circumstances exist on the property which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Granting the variance requested would not confer upon the applicant any special privilege. The literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others. The variance granted is a minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land. Granting of the variance will preserve the spirit of the ordinance, remain in harmony with its general purpose and intent. Granting the variance, the public safety and welfare must be assured. In no case shall the granting of a variance result in a change of use, which would not be permitted in the zoning. That's not an issue here in the last one. So on the bottom of that same page, I'll go into the analysis. The applicant is requesting before I start actually, I just want to clarify that there was some mix-up or some confusion in this analysis here, so I'll try to, there's really two issues here, two different sets of code that are being applied here or being encroached upon. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow a detached accessory structure, a carport, to be located in the front yard. The structure was erected without the benefit of a building permit. The applicant is attempting to rectify the issue with this permit. A variance is required to allow a structure to be located within 18 feet of the right-of-way as required per the original PUD development standards of the American Village Plat. The plat was approved in 1986, consistent with the 1982 Plan Unit Development rezoning per ordinance number 44-1982. In 1993, the property was rezoned to R1B, it should be A, PUD. The zoning development standards of the 1982 PUD continued to apply to the placement and orientation of buildings and other structures in the American Village subdivision. And then also in ordinance number 5, 1993, which is the ordinance that did the citywide rezoning, there is a provision in there about vested rights, and that a plat or preliminary plat that was in review or has been approved and still may have some lots that are vacant can continue under those original regulations, and that's the case here with this particular plat. There is a minimum setback of 18 feet between any one-story building and all public or private access right-of-way designed for limited vehicular traffic, such as cul-de-sacs or dead-end type streets. The property at 1660 Yorktown Avenue is on such a local road. The carport structure is located 10 feet from the Yorktown Avenue public right-of-way. So there's an encroachment into that 18 feet setback. In addition, the freestanding structure in the front yard conflicts with section 28-391, subparagraph F of the code. Accessory structures shall not be located in the front yard except one detached landscape feature, arbor, or trellis. There does not appear to be a hardship to permit the carport in the front yard. The house was originally constructed with an attached garage, which meets the minimum setback. The staff is recommending denial of the variance to allow structure to encroach into the 18-foot setback from the public right-of-way per the PUD, and to allow a freestanding structure in the front yard per section 28-391 of the code. We do not believe that there are any circumstances or conditions that exist on the land that prevent the applicant from adhering to the zoning. Conditions are the result of the owner's actions. Granting the variance would confer upon the applicant privilege denied to others in the same zoning. The literal interpretation of the code would not deprive the owner rights commonly enjoyed by others. The house was built in '86 with an attached garage. The variance is not the minimum necessary to make reasonable use of the land. The carport is a freestanding structure in the front yard and is 10 feet from the public right-of-way. So with that, I'm going to refer you to page 63 of your packet. And there is the survey that was submitted to us. So you can see the property as illustrated where the house is oriented on the lot. And you'll see the carport shaded in the top right, or kind of in the center there in the driveway. It is currently detached, or it was erected to be detached from the roof of the wall of the principal structure. It's just right there in front of the garage. I'm going to refer you to page 68 of your packet. And if I'm going too fast, please tell me. I'd like you to get to the right page if possible. I've highlighted the section that talks about that vested right under the original PUD zoning. And so it says here, and according to the ordinance 5-1993, which is this rezoning ordinance that did a citywide rezoning of all properties. It says here under vested rights, development that has received preliminary plat approval, preliminary subdivision approval, preliminary PUD approval, or preliminary site plan approval, provided said development has secured current permit to construct all or any phase of said development and is continuing said development in good faith. And so in this case, this means is that the American Village PUD, as it was originally zoned in 1982, platted in 1986, the development standards still apply as they were originally approved. So in this case, that's why it has an 18-foot setback between buildings and an 18-foot setback from the public right-of-way, which is a little different from our current code where we apply it in other areas. So with that, I'm going to now jump to page 73 of your packet. And this is an excerpt from the original code that was used in order to approve this development. And it says here in highlight, setback requirements. There shall be a minimum setback of 18 feet between any one-story buildings and all public rights or private access right-of-way designed for limited vehicular traffic, and so on. So in this case here, you have, if you look back at that survey, you'll see that all structures should be 18 feet from each other and from the public right-of-way. Going further onto page 79 of your packet, this is the next section of the current code where we have a provision that prohibits anything inside the front yard. So in other words, forward the house. You can put up a trellis or an arbor or some kind of landscape feature, but you can't put up a freestanding carport in the front yard. And that's in this section 28-391 of our current code, paragraph F. And it says, accessory structures should not be located in the front yard with the following exception. One detached landscape feature, arbor or trellis under 120 square feet with a maximum height of 12 feet, a minimum of 5 feet from the property line, and shall not be placed in the site distance, and so on. So this right here says that allows what can be there, but a freestanding carport is not one of them. With that, I'm going to jump to page 81 of your packet. And these included some images that were supplied by the Code Enforcement Department. This is the structure that's currently standing there now. With that, I'll try and answer any questions you have about this. The applicant is also here to answer any questions.
How far is the end of the structure to the public right-of-way?
From what I understanding, this structure is encroaching 10 feet into that 18 feet. As far as it's, I believe, we'll have to look at the survey. Give me one moment, I'm sorry. So the survey is back on page 63 of your packet.
I know in the analysis it said the carport structure is located 10 feet from the public right of way, but I think I read somewhere else it was, I didn't know if it was 8 or 10 feet from what I heard. So somewhere in that ballpark though. Okay.
Yes, well, according to the survey, you can see that the estimated location of where this carport is right at that 10-foot drainage utility easement on page 63 of your packet. So that's how we determined, we believe that's 10 feet away from the property line. So it's encroaching about 8 feet into that 18-foot setback.
Are there other questions of staff before we go public hearing?
Just to be clear, Mr. Parrish, this is a code enforcement case. They were cited for construction without a permit.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions of staff, we'll open up the public at this time. May we have our first card, please?
Dale Hersher.
Mr. Hersher, would you come up, please, and give your name and address for the record, sir?
Dale Herkett, 1679 Yorktown Avenue in Titusville. I live about 6 houses to the north of the Robbins. Should they speak first? I don't know, because I'm here in support of them, but you haven't heard their discussion, so I don't know point of order here.
Yes, it would be appropriate to ask the applicant to come up.
Okay.
Very good, so we'll do a switch then.
I'll need a card when they're through, okay, please?
I'm Joan, and this is my husband, Jerry.
Can you fill out a card after you speak, ma'am?
Pardon?
When you're finished speaking, will you fill out that card, or have you
Okay,
filled it out?
Sorry, need them up here? Okay, sorry. Come on in, Jerry. You want me to try it? Let me have yours. No, she's got it. Oh, she's got it, okay. All right, the one thing that we
Yeah,
didn't understand.
would you give your name and address for the record,
Joan
please?
Robbins, 1660 Yorktown Avenue. And my husband, Jerry, 1660 Yorktown. Anyhow, we didn't know we had to have a permit to begin with. We lived in Merritt Island for over 40 years, and we never knew that. So once they did it, the day after it got put up, a guy by the name of Brad that works in the building department, I guess was wanting to get brownie points, so he squealed, and of course, we got written up, but we didn't know that we had to have a permit when we did it. But anyhow, the thing is our garage is 19 feet long, our truck is 18 feet 7 inches. So we couldn't even use the garage, so we put this up to where we could have a thing to protect our truck.
Keep it out of the weather. Keep the truck out of the weather.
Yeah, keep the truck out of the weather and to protect it, you know. We don't need to have the weather totally destroy it. And we wax it and take care of it. And plus another thing, we had just gotten a new roof, a metal roof last year. And then when we got this done, we had the roof match it to where it would look nice. There's a lot of people that don't even mow their grass and don't take care of their place. And we try to take care of our place to where it makes it look good. And all our neighbors, they were so excited when they saw it up, they thought it was cool. They said, oh, we want one, we want one. And like I said, with the way our garage is so small, we could get our truck in there.
Well, we've only got, 16 feet, not 19, because the door opens up and you
Right.
gotta have that 3 feet open
Yeah,
for the
and
door.
plus when we bought the house, there was cabinets in there on both sides. But I know we could have taken those out to put our truck in, but it's almost
Still won't
impossible.
fit.
And plus our truck's 7 feet wide. But the other thing is we do have a small front yard setback. And I was told by somebody I won't say who, in the building department, he says, you know, that's a problem. When they did this and rezoned it and all that stuff, when they did a new thing on it back in '93, it changed it for a lot of people. So I don't know if that affected why we couldn't have this. Now,
No,
you-
there's no
you-
way we
you-
can use
You
a
do
garage.
your stuff.
No, you just covered it.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
And plus another thing, it's like, we're using our property, our driveway. It's not even past the driveway. It's not over into the sidewalk at all. And I don't understand why we can't have it.
That's good.
It's basically the zoning laws. It doesn't matter what the zoning laws are. I mean, how big our property is, the zoning laws tell me what I can do on that piece of property, on that driveway.
All right, John.
And I just don't think it's right.
All right, let's go.
Ma'am, wait before you go. How long is the structure that you put up there?
It's 24 feet long and it's 15 feet wide.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go.
And how long has the structure been up there?
Pardon?
When was it placed there, the structure? When was it built?
June, when did that come?
Please stand in front of the mic so we
Sorry.
keep you on
It was
record.
June, I forget.
June
When the
4th?
code enforcement got written up, it got completed the day before.
I think it was June the 4th.
Yeah, I think it was
Okay.
June the 4th.
Thank you. Any other questions of these applicants? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we have another card, you said.
Yes, Mr. Hirsch?
Hi, Dale Herkett, 1679 Yorktown Avenue in Titusville. Like I said, I live 6 houses to the north of the Robbins. So I personally, for me, I see nothing wrong with the structure. It does not encroach into the sidewalk area. It does set back a few inches from the sidewalk, so there's no blocking of access there. Many times we have cars parked. People have multiple cars that will park, in the driveway, and it blocks sidewalks, and we do have a lot of dog walkers. So I thought it was respectful for them to at least keep it out of the sidewalk area. It is aesthetically pleasing. Like they said, the roof structure does match the color of the roof of the house. So I thought that was foresight for them to match up the structure in that manner. It is a permanent structure in that it is bolted to the concrete, which I think is much more beneficial than the tubular ones with the canvas or tarp type of structures we see in the neighborhoods. Those are susceptible to being blown over from hurricanes, so on and so forth. At least this one is bolted down and becomes more of a permanent structure of the house, which I think is safer in the long run. In this neighborhood, we have other structures such as theirs, and in fact, around the corner from them, there is a structure built the exact same way. And again, that structure does not impede into the sidewalk area. So I don't see where it's an impediment to the looks of the neighborhood or the functionality of the sidewalk or even the thoroughfare of the road itself. So I know for me, I was looking at the drawing there. The measurement is from that one side of the sidewalk back to the house. I personally, for me, I didn't realize that the sidewalk was considered part of the street thoroughfare, but evidently it is. I know for me, from the street, the sidewalk, my sidewalk sits back 17 feet plus the width of the sidewalk. So they've got approximately that much plus the distance of the sidewalk before you hit the carport. So I'm here to speak in favor of them. I don't see a problem with the structure. I think it is aesthetically pleasing. It's functional, and it does protect their investment into their vehicles. Vehicles are larger today. They're not going to fit in these tiny one-car garages. So I'm here for them, and any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer.
Do we have any questions? I see no lights. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other cards on this subject?
No, sir.
Very well. Then we will close the public hearing and bring it back. Are there to the commission for consideration? Are there any more questions of staff on this setback or request?
I think I'm like gonna follow up on that last comment and then my first question. The 10 feet from the public utility easement, there's still footage beyond that to the street itself, Mr. Parrish?
So I believe your question is 10 feet, let's say it's 10 feet from the carport itself to the property line. There's still, yeah, there's some distance between the property line to the edge of the pavement of the street. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. I'm not sure the exact distance, but there's, and you can see in the illustration on page 63 of your packet
Yeah.
that the sidewalk, which is 5 feet or maybe 4 feet in this case, and then the driveway itself with the apron going out to the pavement, it looks like it's almost the length or the distance between equal to what you see on the property itself. So yeah, it does look like the pavement is kind of far from the property line itself. The applicant didn't, and I did talk about that. I think she believed that the setback would be measured or assumed to be measured from the street pavement.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Setbacks are always measured from the property line. It just happens that this particular subdivision, this particular development has located the pavement of the road far from the property line.
The public right-of-way, does that include the drainage? I'm trying to look up Unicode real quick to get the exact definition of right-of-way.
Oh, sure. So the right-of-way is actually what's not on the property. So the easement is on the private property. Outside of the property line where the sidewalk starts, that is the public domain. That is the public right-of-way.
Okay.
It does seem to be a wide right-of-way.
Well, I mention it because when I'm looking at the terminology where it specifically said from the right-of-way, as opposed to just the general setback, let me pull it back up again.
I wanted to ask you, would you rather see another picture on the phone? Shows you a better picture?
Ma'am, you need to be invited up when they are ready for you.
1 minute.
So are you looking, I'm sorry, you're looking at trying to find a definition of public right-of-way in our code?
Yeah, so I can read it in conjunction with the 1990, or I think was the 1993 ordinance. Yes, that's what I was looking at.
Okay.
Oh, here, okay. So I'm back on page 73.
Okay.
Let me read it again.
You'd like me to read it again?
No, I'm reading
Okay.
it again. No, you don't have to read it. I'll read it to myself. The way I'm reading that versus some of the more modern verbiage where this specifically says 18 feet from the right-of-way.
No. No, it says 18 feet from,
So even, let's say even,
or probably.
you'll see subdivisions, sometimes they'll have private streets. They'll create a tract that's their private, where the road is. In other words, if it's not public right of way, then it'll be a separate tract sometimes in these subdivisions. And that in itself right there is the private right of way.
So the apron of the driveway is the private right-of-way, where that's.
Yeah, the
Okay.
apron itself is gonna be in the public domain, because that's in order to have access to that street. That's a design requirement.
Right, okay, all right. That clears that up for me. Thank you.
All right, any other questions of staff or comments? Okay, just to be clear, staff, this was constructed without consulting the city or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, do I have any recommendations or motion from this group?
Mr. Chairman, I can't justify making a motion to approve. So we'll leave it at that.
Any other comments or motions?
I don't know how we can get beyond the, that there's supposed to be no freestanding, structures in the front of a building also. That part hasn't been addressed. I know you're talking about the setbacks, but the ordinance says that there's not supposed to be any freestanding structures other than like a landscape trellis or something.
So, we see you. We've closed the public hearing. We do see you. They're investigating it too.
We've had a request to be spoke to by the applicants again. Is it the wish of this commission to hear them again or not?
That's fine.
Oh, yes, yes. Very well. You may come to the mic, please. You wish to add something more to your statement, ma'am?
Well, when she was asking, I was gonna show her a picture real time,
Don't worry
and
about
I didn't
that.
know if that would help.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I'm just looking at the language of the code, but I had those questions. So, I mean, a picture would have been nice, but it's truly unnecessary. I'm able to understand it a little bit better by reading it again.
Well, we had like 3 pictures, and I didn't know if you needed to look at any of them.
That's okay.
Doesn't the fact that we only have a garage space for 16 feet when our vehicle is 18?
You could have bought a Honda Civic, so not necessarily something that we would
I
consider.
could have bought a Cadillac too, but
You absolutely could have. But thank you for coming back up. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
We have no further questions, though.
thank you.
Thank you.
let's go.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I did save a Google image, which you probably could do yourself, a look at it, from Street View into Agenda Star for this property to kind of give you an understanding or some perspective of the depth of the lot from the street itself. Hopefully it's saved in the Agenda Star so you can view that. But that's to answer some of the concerns that Ms. Rodriguez has already, or questions that she's asked me about the distance from the street itself.
What'd you find there? According to the thing, it's 10 feet from the sidewalk.
Can you guys please disclose your conversations?
I'm at Google Maps. Why can't I?
If
I'm on
you,
Google Maps looking at the street view. And I was looking where the structure ended. So now I'm back on page 82 of the packet looking at the structure appears to be up next to the sidewalk. And then comparing that to Google Maps is our discussion.
Yeah, it's about 2, I think it's 2 or 3 feet from the sidewalk.
Not that far. Okay. So it's not quite like the survey shows on page, what was that, 63? Or
63 was the survey, yeah.
yeah, the survey shows it back. Well, I guess it's highlighted there a little bit. Okay.
You're correct. At page 82, it looks like the carport is almost a few inches from the edge of the sidewalk.
Okay.
I mean, quite frankly, neither here nor there. I was trying to get a clear definition of public right of way the way it was phrased there, but it does say private access as well. And I understand they bought a nice truck, they want to protect it, I get it, but that's not part of the criteria that we can consider. And even at best, with a 24-foot long structure, I mean, at the very least, it could be 5 feet less and encroach less into the setback, but that's not done either.
All right. Any other comments or discussion or questions? Entertain a motion then.
I move to deny variance 18-2022 on the basis that there are no special conditions of circumstances for the property, and rather they are created by the applicant.
Okay, we've had a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Very good. May we have roll call, please?
Chairman Taylor?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith Rodriguez?
Yes.
Member Beckles?
Yes.
Member Wheelis?
Yes.
Alternate Member Van Zyl de Jong?
Yes.
Okay, so your variance application has been denied at this time. Okay. All right, so do you want me to go to 19 next? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. At this time, we'll go to variance application number 19-2022 for 2901 Jasmine Street. Staff?
So this application starts on page, the agenda page starts on page 10 of your agenda packet. I'm going to skip to the staff report, which is on page 12 of your packet. So this application number 19-2022 is for property located at 2901 Jasmine Street. The applicant, Amber Gevers, is requesting a variance to Land Development Regulations, Section 28-304, single-family medium-density R1B zoning district to allow a pool and enclosure to encroach into the 20-foot side corner yard setback for property located in the single-family density R1B district at 2901 Jasmine Street. The comprehensive plan future land use designation is low-density residential. Again, the property is R1B, and so are all the surrounding lots in this area. The lot is rectangular in shape and meets the width and area requirements of the R1B zoning district. I'm on page 13 of your packet now. The property is a corner lot, which means with frontage on Jasmine Street and a side corner yard facing Fern Avenue. The current detached single-family home is a permitted use in the R1B zoning district. I won't repeat the criteria. On the bottom of that page, I'll begin the summary of the analysis. The applicant is requesting a variance to construct a pool and enclosure in their rear yard and partially into the side corner yard setback. The pool enclosure will meet the rear yard setback. Pool enclosure will encroach into the required 20-foot side corner setback. The house was constructed in 1964 prior to the placement of the current R1B zoning district. Again, this is reference to the 1993 citywide rezoning. The house currently encroaches 5 feet into the side corner setback and is considered to be a non-conforming structure. The applicant is requesting to align the pool enclosure with the side of the house. There does not appear to be a specific hardship related to property. The lot conforms to the R1B zoning district. The non-conforming status of the house does not confer a special privilege to approve an additional encroachment into the setback. The addition of the pool and enclosure appears to be a self-created hardship. The variance does not appear to be a minimum necessary. The pool with patio is 34 feet in length and 23 feet wide. The screen enclosure could be reduced in size to the edge of the pool. This would leave an 18-foot setback for both the pool and enclosure. So staff is recommending denial of the variance. The house already encroaches into the side corner setback of the R1B zoning district. Proposed encroachment of the pool enclosure or self-created hardships granted the variance could confer a privilege denied to other properties in the same zoning district. So with that, I'm going to skip around to page 22 of your packet. And this is the survey that was submitted to us by the applicant with an illustration as to where this pool will be located. So according to the code, the definition of the front yard is where the width of the lot that's the shortest. So that would be Jasmine Street. And so that the front yard setback would be measured from that point. The side corner setback would be measured from Fern Avenue. So the side corner setback is a unique setback for all structures. On the rear setback, I believe it's 25 feet or maybe 20. The west side, which is the interior side, would be 10 feet. So we're only concerned right now about the side corner setback. The house currently encroaches 5 feet into that setback right now, so there's 15 feet between the house and the property line at Fern Avenue. The applicant is hoping to put a pool in the back with the enclosure to align with that building wall. The variance tonight is not about the house, though. The variance is about the accessory structure, the accessory use there. It's not about the house. So in other words, you couldn't, we're not considering to approve or to make the house conforming in any way. I'm going to skip to page 24 of your packet. And there is an image there of the house, and the screen will align with that side wall you see on the right side of that image. I'm going to skip now to page 26. This is section 28-304, single-family, medium-density R1B zoning district of the code. In paragraph C, intensity and dimensional standards, you'll see setbacks for front yard setbacks, side corner setback, interior side yard setback, and rear yard setback, which is 25 feet. So right now, again, we're only concerned about the side corner setback. The reason I'm mentioning this is because these are setbacks that are primarily concerned about the setbacks of the primary structure, the house. On the next page, on page 27, 28-391, residential accessory buildings and structures. So in that section, we go to the next page, which is page 28 of your packet, and you'll see two tables in there. And it says under paragraph G, accessory buildings and structures shall meet the standards of the zoning district in which they are located with the following exceptions. And you see in those two tables, the exceptions are only about rear and side yards, not side corner. So in other words, the property owner is required, even accessory structures must meet the side corner setback as what the principal structure has to meet. So in both instances, it has to be 20 feet. I'm going to skip to page 30. And you'll see another drawing that was submitted by the applicant. So you can see the area that they want to enclose with the pool enclosure. I apologize. There was one other drawing that they submitted to us to kind of illustrate the pool itself. Here you go, on page 29 of your packet. And so with this drawing that was submitted with the original building permit, which they had reviewed until it was stopped because of the variance issue, you can see the dimensions that they're proposing for the pool and enclosure. So we're suggesting that there is a possibility that maybe the pool enclosure could be shortened a little bit in order to bring it into a more minimum of variance as opposed to the variance that they're asking for. So our argument, our position is that the house doesn't, the non-conforming status of the house doesn't confirm or confer some kind of approval of another potential encroachment. So with that, I'll try and answer any questions you have about this.
Prior to 93, do we have any records of what the setback was for corner lots when this subdivision was built back in the 60s?
I don't have that, sir. I don't have that information. The idea in 93 to rezone the properties to the current zoning districts was to eventually bring them to conformance. So the zoning district that it replaced and any setback requirements that new zoning district had replaced becomes irrelevant. Because in other words, the purpose of the rezoning was to eventually bring whatever structures that now may have been created non-conforming, that eventually they'll become conforming. So we did not consider the previous rezoning or setbacks that were in effect at that time. And this is different from the previous case because this was not a PUD. This was a straightforward, a standard zoning districts prior to 93 and currently.
I understand that part, but I don't understand the reasoning how properties can be brought back into the new code. So, or thoughts were that existing structure would be shrunk to meet the new code in the future?
Eventually, yes, sir. The purpose of the rezoning properties is to bring them into impose a different standard to eventually bring them into conformance.
All right. Other questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go
just a
ahead.
comment. Short of demolition, there actually is no way to bring these structures into conformance unless they specifically apply for a variance for the actual nonconformity of the principal structure. Is that correct, Mr.?
Correct.
Additionally, when this zoning is put in place, without doing that, they are essentially taking rights away from the property owner at the time by depriving them of rights to develop their property in the manner that they expected to when they built or bought that property. So that's what we're dealing with. There has been a philosophy that says the principal structure, whether conforming or non-conforming, actually establishes the existing setback line on a non-conforming property. That's a bone of contention among various members. So it's my thought that this expansion of the property, expansion of the nonconformity is actually very reasonable and within the rights of the property owner to do.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions of staff? No. Very good. Then we'll open it up to public hearing. Do we have a card submitted, please?
Amber and Rudy Jeevers.
Very well. Would you please come up and state your name and address for the records, please?
My name is Amber Gevers, 2901 Jasmine Street, Titusville, and my husband, Rudy Gevers.
My name is Rudy, 2901 Jasmine Street.
I don't do well with this at all, so I'm going to read from my paper so I can get all my thoughts through. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for taking your time to listen to us and hopefully better understand our request. I'm sorry, I don't do well with this. We moved into this house 6 years ago, and we're working very hard on making the home and property a lot of improvements inside and outside. We've actually been planning for this pool for about 5 years because we didn't want to have to finance a lot. We've been saving and dreaming and planning. So after much research, we went with a highly rated pool company with many years of experience, and we're able to sign the contract back in August of 21, just now being able to start in June of this year, which we knew would probably be the case. And then, much to our surprise, our permit gets denied. Because the zoning law has changed since 1964, which tonight was actually the first time I was able to figure out when this zoning laws changed. I tried to research it, I couldn't find anything. And the original denial stated that our option was to either cut the pool enclosure and pool by 5 feet to be within that 20-foot side yard setback, or to apply for the variance. And as you see in one of the pictures that I submitted, there's a measuring tape, and that measuring tape shows 5 feet, which goes right into a window of our house, so we can't secure a screen enclosure. And the other issue is I read the analysis, and why I do see what they're saying about reducing the size of the screen enclosure to minimize the footage. I understand that, but I also see that as almost a safety issue, because what that's going to do is it's going to make only 12 inches between the east end of the pool and the screen. And if you've ever been in a pool, trying to get out on a 12-inch piece of pavement would prove to be pretty difficult. And then also maintaining and cleaning the pool, walking around that 12-inch area could not be fun. And also shortening the screen enclosure it would just put it at a very oddball place in the middle of the house. You know, it's to me, it's going to look very not pretty, you know, not aesthetically pleasing, because this bar is just going to start randomly on the side of the house. And then, of course, our main issue is our house is already in that encroachment. We respectfully cannot move our house over 5 feet to meet the current zoning laws. And unfortunately, 58-year-old home, we would have never guessed that in a million years that would be an issue. We were able to actually speak to several of our neighbors even after they got the notice of this meeting, and everyone was absolutely shocked that this was even an issue that was being brought up, because our house is already standing in that space. Everyone that we were able to speak to agreed that, you know, we should be able to start at the southeast corner of our house. And really, in conclusion, we respectfully, I don't feel, we're not trying to, and I don't feel like we're asking for anything above and beyond. Our house is there. We're just asking to align from where our house sits. And unfortunately, the zoning laws changed in between when the house was built and when we moved in 6 years ago. So that's everything I have.
I just came for support.
You do an
But
excellent job.
I
Excellent.
really appreciate you guys taking your time to listen. Means a lot to us. I'm sure you do this all the time, but for us, this is new, and I appreciate it.
Questions of the applicants?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just for the record, do we have any other cards?
No, sir.
Very well. Then we will close the public hearing at this time and bring it back to the board for discussion and or motion. Or questions of staff. Me personally, it seems like we've run into this problem on other occasions, especially dealing with corner lots, unfortunately, between, fences and you name it. We've run into a lot of things. I agree a variance in this case, or I believe the variance is justified for squaring off. I think, yeah, offset pool would look funny, shall I say, in my profession, looking at the pool that was offset like this. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the applicant did mention a picture that they submitted, and that's on page 25 of your packet.
Yes, sir. That shows where the screen would have to hit in the middle of that
Right,
window.
which is impossible.
Well, very close to the middle of the window, yes, it would. And you must have a bedroom window, so you can't eliminate the window to keep it a bedroom. All right. Any other discussion or comments? Thank you. Already made your comments known. Anybody else? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve variance application 19-2022 for 2901 Jasmine Street, LDR section 28-304, to allow pool enclosure to encroach into the 20-foot setback side corner yard setback for the ROE 1B zoning by 5 feet. And
Mr. Willis,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, would you be able to maybe cite a particular criteria that supports the motion for approval?
the juxtaposition of the house versus the overlay of the zoning setbacks create a unique situation.
Thank you.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. May we have roll call, please?
Member Beckles?
Yes.
Member Wheelis?
Yes.
Alternate Member Van Zildjian?
Yes.
Chairman Taylor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith Rodriguez?
Yes.
Very well. Your variance has been approved. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Y'all are free to go.
Well, you don't have to leave, but you know, it's just.
Like a hostage victim. After their case is done.
Approval. Okay, seeing no public, I'm going to say there's no request or petitions from the public present. So we'll get to some reports, and we have a infill development.
Variance 20, no longer.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was a variance. We've had a request for variance number 20 dash 2022 for 835 Century Medical Drive. There's a letter here, or dated the 25th, that this variance be withdrawn at this time. So it could come back. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay. They just weren't ready for it tonight, so. All right, so that is done. So, all right, now, no petitions. Reports, infill development. You were going to tell us a little something there.
I just have a very short presentation. This is in response to conversations and comments and questions that you had at your last meeting about the difficulty of being able to adhere to the code in certain circumstances on certain properties, especially as landscape requirements and meeting other setback requirements. I think the questions and comments were generated out of a particular case related to allowing for a duplex on a residential lot. So I offered to give you a short presentation that I gave the city council last year to see if we can get some direction from them on what we can, just kind of presenting them the issue and see if we can get some direction and comments from them about what we can do in the future to try and make the code a little more flexible. So I'm just going to give the same presentation to you and try to answer any questions. And if you'd like at the end, I know that you suggested maybe forwarding or asking us to maybe bring up these issues to city council to maybe consider direction to staff to maybe do some amendments to the code to make things a little more flexible. So we do not have a direction to you. We're not asking you for any particular direction for you to approve or anything. It's just, this is some information for you to start a conversation and think about. So on page 86 of your packet, I included the presentation slides, and I'll briefly go through them. So what I spoke to City Council was there is a definite need for allowing more flexibility in the code to, especially on infill lots, especially to allow for affordable housing and to allow other types of housing that may not necessarily be affordable, just a market rate, but just the types of housing that we don't typically see or used to see many decades ago. And that's kind of duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, things of that nature. And that's what, in the planning world, we call the missing middle. So we kind of see the typical development being a single-family subdivision or your standard garden-style apartment complex. And those are all large pieces of property. But these smaller out parcels and infill parcels that are between other subdivisions or other developments, there are opportunities for them to be filled in with some kind of development. But because of the standards we have in place right now, such as landscape setbacks, buffers, and other setbacks, they can be very difficult to adhere to, and they're forced to come before you for a lot of variances. On the next page, page 87 of your packet, I'm going to give you a couple of case studies which you might be familiar with, some of you might be familiar with. This is in a case study of an affordable housing project in the R3 zoning district, which is a multifamily zoning district. And this was something that was presented to you for variances, just to allow 10 apartment units on a piece of property that's a little less than an acre size. And they were required to get 7 variances to buffers and setbacks. It took a fairly long time to get this project approved because of all the different iterations we had to work with them to try and make sure that they were minimizing their variances as much as possible. And that's our key. Our staff is always trying to find ways to minimize the variances that anyone has to go through as much as possible, to minimize the number of cases that come before you, and so you have a shorter night with the city here. This one was difficult, and it's in an area that had the road network there and the utilities available. And those are the two main components of an infill development, or an infill lot. They have the infrastructure there already, but for whatever reason, they're just skipped over and not built on. And it's probably most likely because of some zoning requirement. On the next slide, you'll see, the next page, page 88, at the top slide there, you'll see the first iteration of that plan included 3 buildings for those 10 units with an on-site parking lot and a significant amount of stormwater to be required. There was a right-of-way that was located, or a 10-foot wide alleyway right-of-way located right through the middle of this property. So they had to vacate that, go through, and they also had to justify all the variances. And then we try to figure out ways that they can actually do this development and do all the engineering, and meet all the stormwater requirements that are new today compared to when this property was originally platted. So we looked at alternatives with them, and even amending the code to allow on-street parking allowances in this particular area. So we worked hard with them to try and come up with some alternatives, but they had to go through, in addition to coming before you, go before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council for the right-of-way vacate, get another ordinance adopted to allow what they're trying to do. And we think this is a good case of where a good project was going through, but had to go through a lot of hoops. On the bottom slide there, on that same page, 88, second case study. This is a townhome development, and you might be familiar with this one too. This is market rate housing. Same zoning district, R3 multifamily zoning. This was for 28 townhomes on a property that is just shy of 3 acres. They required 6 variances to buffers and setbacks. It took a little more than 12 months, actually probably a year and a half, to really complete this with all the variances that were necessary. Even had to go through an ordinance change in order to allow townhome development on properties smaller than 5 acres. And because of the size of this property, they had a 20-foot landscape buffer that was required. On the next page, page 89, you'll see the layout of the townhome development with 2 access points. They had to get a lot of waivers, several waivers from our development review committee as well, even some administrative waivers. So they go through a lot of processes in order to get this type of development approved on this property, which we had considered to be an infill lot. The infrastructure is there, the roads are there. And then the bottom slide there, you'll see kind of an image of what it might look like with just on the vacant piece of property. But there are some issues that some people have with the fact of having a multifamily development next to or across the street from a single family development. So there's compatibility issues too. In this case, it's debatable whether this is incompatible. I think it probably could be considered compatible. It had the right zoning, and they were allowed to go forward with that type of use by right. It's the development standards is what held them up. So in conclusion, on the page 90 of your packet, we had suggested to the City Council that the code could be better aligned with affordable housing comprehensive plan policies, allow for more flexible buffer and setback standards, and provide some more infill development incentives. So that with that, that's what we presented to City Council. We had a very good discussion with them, and tonight I'll try and entertain any questions you have about this issue and any recommendations you might have.
You made a comment that there was an ordinance change for that property, the first property you discussed. Was that for that property alone, or was that an ordinance change citywide?
No, sir. It was an area identified west of the CRA or the downtown that was platted and developed in such a way that could accommodate some on-street parking and sanctioned in that way. So they still have to go, each new development still has to meet certain criteria and go through our development review committee to get on-street parking approved. But no, it was not a citywide ordinance. It was a selected area, and not specific to one property either.
So that does not apply, say, a half a mile south of there or some other location. It's
Correct. There are actually two, it was, the first area that this on-street parking is allowed is in the downtown mixed-use zoning district, in the downtown area. So that ordinance, this ordinance that I referred to earlier was to allow that concept to be in another area of the city, immediately west of the city, of the CRA. But it does not, it's not permitted currently in other parts of the city.
Okay.
It sounds almost as if there just needs to be more built-in exceptions. I mean, obviously redoing the code or amending it, but you're still gonna have these issues. But if there are these large identifiable issues, like what you present here, the code being itself, and then the provisions that say except when and describe those potential set of circumstances, which would still be difficult because it depends on how many, but making more exceptions identifiable exceptions might be a little bit easier.
And making those exceptions, wouldn't that preclude the applicants having to come before us each time for each individual item?
It certainly reduce the number of variances or requests that might come before you, or even cases. Yes.
Okay.
You know, quick question on procedure. So members of the city write the code or the ordinances, and then it goes before city council with a couple of sentences, a few minutes, and it gets approved or not approved, yes?
Each ordinance is a little different. Some are more complicated than others, but generally they come before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there's 2 meetings before City Council. And so sometimes they do take longer than just those 3 meetings.
Because I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but including more people in these discussions, describing this issue to landscape companies and construction companies and design companies, people in the community that are actually the pool companies going out and working on these properties that are running into these problems all the time, maybe they have ideas. I mean, we sit here, we read the code, we try our best to apply the code, and I can tell you my personal thoughts on certain things, but involving more people. I mean, I'm still bent out of shape about the ordinance that city council approved taking away our job on the BAA over the bridge. I'm bent out of shape about that. And then to not include in that ordinance that it's going to be widespread notice to all the people in the city that it affects. They didn't even invite the people of the city to that hearing. So I think involving the people who would have more insight as part of your planning process might give you at least more information to go on.
In response, we do try, depending on the issue or the ordinance that's coming before us. I'll give you an example, the tree ordinance, the landscape ordinance. There is a group of people that are interested citizens that we have maintained a list of, and we keep them informed on any change that happens or any draft of that ordinance that was going through at that time. So it really depends. We do try to make the right people aware who are interested depending on the topic. Whether we have a more formal system for that outside of our standard requirement for notice or publishing advertisements of ordinances, it's something we probably could consider and maybe improve on.
And I think the formal process should be the informal process of social media. I mean, the city has a website, the city has a Facebook page. There's all the Facebook pages talking about the city. I mean, simply having something posted on the website in it, not where you have to dig. I mean, I go look for the agenda and I have to dig and I feel like I should know where to find it. But even on a tag on social media, reminder, city council meeting tonight, here are the issues, or reminder, city council meeting next week. And in regards to this particular project, putting out a notice that says, we are considering these issues. If you are a landscaper, a builder, a this or this or this, and you would have some insight, please call us, fill out this Google form. I mean, we have technology available and we have social media outlets available, and they should be used by everybody, but especially the city, especially on issues that affect the city.
Just to further elaborate on something that Brad mentioned, where for an example was made of the tree ordinance, I would say that it all comes down to city council with their desire for the speed and involvement on any particular issue. The ordinances must go through a process where there's 2 readings. That's required by state law. And so The public is invited to come up and speak at both the first and the second reading, which are typically 2 weeks apart. And during those times, those readings, the city council will hear and decide whether or not more time and more involvement may be necessary before processing and approving that ordinance to become a law and effective in the city. And when the tree ordinance was presented, there were different interests that came up and spoke, and city council recognized that it needed more time and to go back to the community to have those fleshing out of different issues, and that's why it took 2 years. Not every ordinance takes that long because there aren't so many people that come up to the podium and say they want to be involved. That particular issue had people that were involved that wanted to get involved, and so council responded to that. And that's often, why interested parties get involved, is because they stand up and say they want to participate. But council and the city, reacts that way. There could be more preemptive conversations, letting people know where to come. We do follow the state law with advertising all of our ordinances. It's in the paper and it's posted here at City Hall. All of the ordinances are required to be posted in that fashion. And so taking the extra step of social media or publishing it it is published on the website through the agenda. So I know that it can be cumbersome to find that information, but it is there.
It has the appearance of impropriety and secrecy when there's so much technology and social media available that the community can access and use, and the city chooses not to go those routes. And I understand there's certain ordinances that take a long time, and I think about the ordinance the very specific one about that bridge. We came to the next meeting thinking we were going to hear a case, and they're like, oh, here's this new ordinance, you're not hearing it. Even we as the board were not even told about it or invited to participate or are asking for our input on it. And if that doesn't appear improper or a secret movement of the process, then I don't know what does. I just would encourage the city to actually come out of the dark ages into the technology that's available. And actually, I'm not saying they have to listen to the people, because a lot of people are going to say things that are not going to be appropriate or within the law or within the ordinances or relevant to the ordinances. But at least letting them know, hey, this is happening. Because even that ordinance I'm talking about, that doesn't change the notice requirements. That's still a sign within 100, all property owners within 100 feet. You know who lives within 100 feet of that bridge? Nobody. So nobody got notice of that. But yet the ordinance was designed for the purpose of, we will deal with it as city council because we're more qualified to deal with bigger issues that affect the whole city. But then they don't bother to notice a single soul on that topic. They have technology, they should use it. But that's all I'm going to say.
I second that very much so. We need to be able to use communication, and the website really does need to have someone who has a little bit more experience in how to communicate out to the general public. Right now, I'm worried because where I live, I'm finding out through basically word of mouth that an old golf course may be turned into, be rezoned. I haven't seen anything or heard anything other than that.
Same with us, sir.
Well, because I was going to be giving you a call very soon to find out how we find out about that, because I don't want them to build because right now it's zoned or should be zoned for recreation. And to change that into multi-level apartment houses and other things would make the area just a little bit west of me basically intolerable.
I think your comments about public notice and public engagement, having those kind of projects or ordinances easily available or salient. I mean, we'll certainly consider it and see what we can do to improve it. But as far as this particular topic about infill development and flexible zoning or flexible development standards, it sounds like you'd like us to look at you think we should consider maybe finding some exceptions for certain types of uses or developments?
I think it hasn't come up, but administrative waiver and review, if you could expand the capability of that group or the administrator you would go a long way towards reducing the number of variance requests.
Well, thank you for that review. I'd missed that evidently, so that went to your presentation. All right. There was something else on there. All right, back to page 3 again. Okay, approval of the semi-annual report. Has it been, you got it all, what page was that on now?
Page 92 of your packet.
92. All right, here we go. 92. And when would that go before city council?
We will try to send that to their next meeting, which will be the second Tuesday in August.
Second is the 9th?
Yes, August 9th.
August 9th. Okay. Did anyone see anything that they had comments on what we've done over the last 6 months?
Do we have to approve it? Is that the question? It looks accurate to me, and I know we talked about at the last meeting, I think last meeting or 2 meetings ago, Mr. Parrish, about, I think you took notes on my comments regarding signage and the literal interpretation of those things. I know those aren't in this report. That was just kind of something that we were going to think about for the future. Does it need to go in the report?
If you'd like, you can make I don't know, maybe we could do it as a motion or just maybe just take the comments from you in direction collectively and we could probably.
I don't remember all my specific comments. I have to go look at the minutes and all that, so I'm not prepared to do that today. But it sounds like we can communicate with city council at any time, so I'm not overly concerned about it. But this report looks accurate, so I'm fine with it.
If no one has a problem with it, we'll just go ahead and submit this in August 9th, city council meeting. All right. Okay. Anything new from staff to report to us?
You currently do not have an application for next month, except because I have not been told by the people for variance number 20 whether they're coming back anytime soon. So I do not have any applications at this moment.
What would be their deadline?
Next week.
Next week. Okay. And we're having a leadership change?
Yes. Peggy Busaka, our director, will be retiring on the 12th of August, and I'll assume her role on the following Monday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We think. We'll see. All right. Counselor, so happy to have you back with us tonight. Sorry I was a blank as to how you were gone. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Anything else from the members? All right, and I have nothing else to add, so we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.